Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering woke teachers panic as states eliminate tenure nationwide. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. I come from a family of teachers. I have a lot of respect for teachers, but teachers should also not be abusing their power. There are too many teachers at grade level and college professors that are abusing their positions because they feel they need to push their views on their students. There's nothing wrong with students being exposed to different ideas, but we all know what we're talking about here. And that's why teacher tenure is under threat. Tenure is something that a teacher aspires to get. It's something that makes it difficult for them to be fired, and they get additional benefits and usually additional higher pay. It's something they can aspire to as part of their career. But unfortunately, too many teachers are abusing their tenure to be able to do and say whatever they want, and they're damaging their students. So conservative states are saying, okay, well, if we have no control over you because you have tenure, maybe you're not going to have tenure anymore. And that's what this is all about. Coming from APnews.com, conservatives take aim at tenure for university professors. Also from APnews.com, Nebraska GOP bills target college professor tenure and diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's like a 2-for-1 there in Nebraska. You go get them, Nebraska. Remember when we were told, oh, critical race theory, that's just some obscure idea. It's only taught in law schools sometimes. It's all just theory and all. It's not mainstream. It's not in your colleges or in your high schools. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. In one way or another. And they don't even deny it anymore. They just lied about it until there was too much of it spread throughout our school systems for us to do much about it. And now they're fighting back. When Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick asked Texas colleges to disavow critical race theory, the University of Texas faculty approved a resolution defending their freedom to decide for themselves how to teach about race. Patrick said he took it as a message to, quote, go to hell. In turn, Patrick, a Republican, said it was time to consider holding the faculty accountable by targeting one of the top perks of their jobs. Quote, maybe we need to look at tenure, Patrick said at a news conference in November. It's a sentiment being echoed by conservative officials in red states across the country. The indefinite academic appointments that come with tenure, the holy grail of university appointment, have faced review from lawmakers or state oversight boards in at least half a dozen states, often presented as bids to rein in academics with liberal views. Tenure advocates are bracing for the possibility of new threats as lawmakers return to state houses across the country. The trend reflects how conservative scrutiny of instruction related to race, gender, and sexuality has extended from schools to higher education. But budget considerations also play a role. Tenured faculty numbers have been declining even in more liberal states. Universities are hiring more part-time adjunct professors amid declines in financial support from state governments. The part-time instructors are much cheaper than long-term, permanent, tenured faculty members. Traditionally, tenured professors can be terminated only under extreme circumstances, such as professional misconduct or financial emergency. Advocates for tenure say it's a crucial component of academic freedom, especially as controversy grows over scholarly discussions about history and identity. Without tenure, faculty are, quote, liable to play it safe when it comes time to have a classroom discussion about a difficult topic, said Irene Mulvey, president of the American Association of University Professors. But in difficult financial and political times, even tenured professors may not be guaranteed employment. In Kansas, Emporia State University this fall cut 33 faculty, most of them tenured, using an emergency pandemic measure that allowed universities to bypass policies on staff terminations to balance budgets. Max McCoy, Emporia State's sole journalism professor, penned a column that began, I may be fired for writing this, before learning this would be his last year teaching at the school. Quote, this is a purge, he said. He said all the fired professors were Democrats or liberal in our thinking. University spokesperson Gwen Larson said individual professors were not targeted for dismissal. She said the cuts followed a review of how demand for academic programs is changing and where we needed to move in the future. Attacks on higher education have been fueled by a shift in how conservatives see colleges and universities, said Jeremy Young of the free expression group PEN America. The share of Republicans and independent-leaning Republicans who said higher education was having a negative effect on the country grew from 37% to 59% from 2015 to 2019 in Pew Research Center polling. In Texas, university administrators are working behind the scenes to squash anticipated legislation that would target tenure, fearful it will hurt recruitment, said Jeff Bloodgett, president of the Texas Conference of AAUP. Some people already aren't applying for university jobs because of the discussion, said Pat Heinzelman, president of the Texas Faculty Association. In Florida, a federal judge in November blocked the Stop Woke Act, a law published by Governor Ron DeSantis that restricts certain race-based conversations and analysis in colleges. The governor's office is appealing the injunction. Compliance with the law would be part of the criteria for evaluating tenured professors under a review process that the university system's board of governors is weighing. So you won't get tenure, that long-term, almost guaranteed position, if you don't comply with the state's rules, although it's still tied up in the courts and it's not completely enforced in Florida. Quote, they've latched on to the idea that many totalitarian regimes have done over the years, which is if you can stop students from learning about ideas that a political party in power disagrees with, that is one way to stop those ideas from existing in the society at all, said Andrew Gothard, president of United Faculty of Florida. DeSantis, though, has questioned the argument that tenure provides academic freedom. Quote, if anything, it's created more of an intellectual orthodoxy where people that have dissenting views, it's harder for them to be tenured in the first place. In Louisiana, lawmakers set up a task force to study tenure with the Republican-backed resolution, noting that students should be confident that courses are free of, quote, political, ideological, religious, or anti-religious indoctrination. Professors raised concerns until they learned the task force's members were mostly tenure supporters. In Georgia, the State Board of Regents approved a policy that made it easier to remove tenured faculty who have had a negative performance review. Elsewhere, legislation to ban or restrict tenure also has been introduced in recent years in Iowa, South Carolina, and Mississippi, but failed to win passage. The pushback follows decades of declining rates of tenured faculty. According to the AAUP, 24% of faculty members held full-time tenured appointments in fall 2020, compared with 39% in fall 1987, the first year for which directly comparable information is available. Part-time college instructors rarely receive benefits. They frequently must travel from campus to cobble together a living. It's a nightmare, said Caprice Lawless, who wrote The Adjunct Cookbook, replete with recipes that poorly compensated PhDs can cobble together with food pantry staples. Quote, I've taken PhDs to food banks and watched them cry because they can't get enough food for their family, said Lawless, who said she served as a social worker of sorts before retiring 2 years ago from Front Range Community College in Westminster, Colorado. The opposition to tenure has united conservatives for different reasons. Not all share the same concerns about woke higher education, said Mark Stein, a San Francisco State University history professor who has written about the shift to part-time faculty. But he said, if you attack the wokeness of higher education, and that leads to declining funding for higher education, then economic conservatives are happy. Tenure exploded after World War II when it helped with recruitment as the GI Bill sent enrollment soaring, said Saul Gittleman, a former provost of Tufts University, who has written on the issue. Lately, the country has overproduced PhDs, said Gittleman, who predicts tenure will largely disappear in the coming decades outside the top 100 colleges and universities. Quote, critical race theory, that's an excuse, he said. If there was a shortage of faculty, you wouldn't hear that. Too many teachers means they're forced to compete with each other. States can decide, okay, well, this is what we want to offer for tenure. This is what we want to offer for compensation. If you don't agree, we're just going to replace you with part-time people. What can they do about it? Well, once the states get the laws together, then there's not much they can do about it at all. From APnews.com, Nebraska GOP bills target college professor tenure and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Scores of people turned out to testify well into the night on bills being considered by Nebraska lawmakers that target diversity initiatives in higher education programs, mirroring proposals by Republicans across the country. The bills before the state legislature's Education Committee included one that would ban diversity, equity, and inclusion, known as DEI, programs and offices at state colleges and universities. Another would eliminate tenure for college professors. Similar bills have been introduced in Republican-led legislatures across the country as the 2024 election year heats up. Senator Dave Merman, a South Central Nebraska farmer who is chair of the Education Committee, introduced the anti-DEI bill that has garnered 13 co-signers who are among the most conservative in the body. Already this year, Republican lawmakers have proposed about 50 bills in 20 states that would restrict DEI initiatives or require their public disclosure. Merman characterized DEI programs as, quote, a threat to academic freedom by elevating diversity over meritocracy. Quote, taxpayer-funded universities shouldn't be used for activism and social change, he said. The 12 people who testified in support of the bill echoed that sentiment, using phrases like Marxist philosophy, a you owe me mentality, and promoting victimhood. Jess Lammers of Holdridge was more blunt, saying DEI is, quote, being inflicted on us by liberals. Quote, it excludes white people, he said. Opponents of the bill vastly outnumbered supporters, and dozens took to the mic to encourage lawmakers to reject it. Among them were several young people of color who grew up in the state or were Nebraska college students who told lawmakers of the discrimination they faced. That included Mia Perales, a University of Nebraska-Lincoln engineering student who graduated at the top of her high school class. Quote, as a Latina woman in engineering, I have been overlooked by my peers countless times, she said. Ricky Barber, the secretary of the Lincoln chapter of the NAACP, addressed lawmakers supporting the bill, several of whom are UNL graduates and Nebraska college football fans. Quote, the transfer portal is a real thing, Barber said, and our black athletes are watching what happens here. So what she's threatening is that their black athletes might leave Nebraska colleges and transfer to other colleges. And those athletes are important for the college because the college gets notoriety and makes money when their students do well as athletes in their sports programs. So you should base your laws on your sports programs. Maybe that's not such a good idea. I don't agree with that. Senator Lauren Lippincott defended his bill seeking to eliminate the tenure system as an idea that's gaining traction in other state legislatures. He noted that similar measures have been or are actively being sought in at least half a dozen other states, including Iowa, Florida, North Dakota, and Texas. Academic tenure is given to high-performing professors, usually those who are long-serving and have a catalog of published academic material. Tenure provides a raft of benefits, including higher pay and heightened job security. Advocates say tenure is crucial to protecting academic freedom. Critics have long held that tenure protects poorly performing professors. Many conservatives have come to see tenure as a system that protects professors who espouse left-leaning ideals. Quote, a lot of these horses were pulling their weight in their youth, Lippincott said. But then those horses end up staying in the barn and just eating hay. You have to love these guys from Nebraska. What a great way to put their point. Sure, maybe they were great when they were young. Now they're old. They're not doing the work they should be doing. And what's worse, they're pushing DEI junk on kids. Lippincott's bill would create a system that would set up annual performance evaluations of all faculty, along with a set of minimum standards of faculty performance and disciplinary actions. It would also set up employment agreements that would lay out grounds to fire faculty, including for just cause or for financial reasons, and program discontinuance by the school. A handful of supporters testified in favor of the bill. Most cited a belief that it would help protect the free expression of conservative views of students who are too often silenced by professors who hold power over them. Opponents warned that eliminating tenure would make the already competitive nature of attracting top candidates for faculty jobs at Nebraska colleges and universities even more difficult. Quote, eliminating tenure would tie both our hands behind our back right at a time when we're trying to recruit and retain faculty, said Chris Kabarek, interim president of the University of Nebraska. Quote, no other Big Ten university is without tenure. We can't afford not to offer it. So far, it's too early to know whether either measure has the votes to advance to the full legislature for a vote. The trend looks like state governments are trying to figure out how and when they're going to hold these tenured professors accountable. It looks like where there's a will, there's a way, and they will figure out how to do it. The idea of getting rid of long-term professors who are dedicated to teaching as a career, it does sound pretty extreme, but it might be necessary if these professors won't agree to work under certain reasonable standards. They can't just abuse their power and say, hey, you can't fire me, it's too bad, I'm tenured. It can't just be that liberals are happy with it, but conservatives are unhappy with it. There's a conflict here and there's going to be a resolution. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.